Hi, everyone. This is Jeff Clark of another episode of the Paydirt Podcast, and I am so excited to introduce our brand new geologist, Sharyn Alexander, to our team here at the Gold Advisor. So, Sharyn, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.
Absolutely. So, as a geologist, she's going to be able to comment and analyze things that, newsletter writers maybe can't quite dive into as deeply. And so, this is going to be a really fantastic addition for us. Most newsletter writers don't have a geologist on staff. So, I'm really proud of this fact. And Sharon has a good track record. We're going to talk about that in a second. But just to be clear, she is working on the Paydirt Prospector newsletter at this time only. So if you are interested in getting Sharon's perspective on the geology of the companies that we recommend there, you will have to subscribe to Paydirt Prospector. But Sharon, let's talk first about your background, your experience, any successes you've had as a geologist. Tell us more about Sharon the geologist.
Yeah, I've had pretty a non-linear career, I think. I started in the technical side of geology, and then now I've ended up in corporate leadership. So that definitely has given me a very broad perspective. I actually started out in kimberlite exploration in Ontario. So
Ah,
in the early 2000s,
huh.
kimberlites and diamond exploration was really very popular. I actually worked at the Acadie Diamond Mine in the Northwest Territories, which was really fun. And I'm very sad that diamond exploration isn't what it was because I really love kimberlites
Yeah.
as a rock and a lithology. And then
Uh,
I moved to Australia and I worked at a Barrick gold mine. And
wow.
then, so, I mean, I have a wide range of experience. I lived in Australia for 5 years. I worked for a junior. I eventually moved into kind of desktop geology. So I made maps, I managed databases,
Oh,
and supporting different groups from the office. So less field work and more office-based work. I worked with B2 Gold. I was on their project evaluations team. So that really sharpened my technical, acumen. And then I moved into corporate leadership, which was kind of by accident. I was VP Technical Services of a junior company based in Vancouver, Sun Summit Minerals. And they were looking for, a president and someone to come up in leadership. And I was appointed president, and I was in that role for 3 years. And so that was the start of my, executive career. Very tough years in the market from 2019 to 2024, I would say. So it definitely opened my eyes to the realities and the downsides of, trying to raise money, very dilutive funding in bad markets. But I really enjoyed that aspect of it. And so I really like kind of taking complex geological concepts and translating it into something that investors can understand. So that would be clear
right.
visuals, clear explanations, an honest story. At the end of the day, it's a relationship business. You want to build trust and also help people understand what actually sets your company apart because there are so many companies. It's a very crowded space.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, we appreciate all the analysis you've already done on the Pater Prospector side, and those readers that get that letter, I think, have seen that, so it's very helpful. But you really have a well-rounded level of experience as a geologist. It's not just always kicking rocks, right? So that's
Exactly.
great. And
Yeah.
speaking of kicking rocks, Sharon, tell us what I think what would be helpful to investors is tell us what you look for from a geological perspective when you're looking at a project, at the rocks, at the ground, at the maps and the data. What are you looking for to tell you, hey, this is pretty prospective, or you know what, guys, you better pass on this one. So, can you share some pointers that you would tell investors about that?
A lot of it comes down to your gut feeling. And it took me a while to realize that I can't really promote a project that is not interesting for me.
Yeah.
It's not just about closology. It's not, a project being
And
drilled to
by
death and it's
closology, you mean a project that's located nearby another mine or project. Gotcha.
correct. Yeah. So if it's beside something that's economic, yeah, it definitely does have a chance to be in that same geological belt and host the same type of mineralization, but sometimes it's just next door and it could be in completely different rocks. So that is definitely helpful, but it doesn't define what makes a project, attractive or profitable. There's a lot of projects as well that have been kept alive because they become qualifying projects for companies. Like a company needs a qualifying transaction and just recycled and they're drilled to death and there's nothing really exciting. You have to have that upside. Scale is a big factor. Really, there needs to be room to grow,
Yeah,
whether it's along strike or down depth or across the belt. You really want to know if there's optionality for scaling up. And another big part of it is whether or not the project can actually become a mine. So this comes
yeah,
down to looking beyond the rocks. So this is jurisdiction, this is permitting, community relationships, government support, and this is even before you start looking at economics. So, and
right.
there's a lot of people involved in evaluating these projects. It's you need engineers, you need environmental specialists, community engagement experts, and so that comes down to another thing is the team, which isn't really
Yeah,
kind of like project dependent, but I personally want to work with people that I trust and I like.
yeah,
And I find that
definitely.
people who are building real companies, they're putting the groundwork in, they have the grit and determination. Experience matters, but also drive. We are coming kind of to a shift in the landscape where, people are retiring and there's a lot of younger people coming in. They don't have
Yeah,
40 years experience, but they have vision, they have adaptability, and very importantly, they have the skills to promote in today's digital market, which is front facing podcasts, it's media interviews, it's social media. And you can't promote the companies the same way that you could in the past. There's certain
right,
words you can't
right.
use anymore, there's compliance and regulations. And so it really is kind of a shift in the way that you promote. And so the team and their effectiveness in doing that also matters.
Yeah, that's great. And hopefully we're helping with that. So
Yeah.
that's all great info, Sharon. Thank you. I understand you have kind of a little funny story, maybe, of you in Australia. So tell us about
Yeah.
that.
I went to Australia in 2005 and I didn't realize that they had different stages of driver's license.
Oh,
There's the like the entry level or the basic one where you just drive an automatic, and then they have one that's like the full license, which you drive a manual transmission. They just asked me if I wanted a full license. I said sure. I was like, why would I want a half or partial license? I didn't quite understand. So I got a full driver's license, which meant I could drive manual, and I had never driven that before. So one of the engineers on site, now this was probably, very not health and safety, I wouldn't, say this, the specific mine, for example, or the person, but we went to an abandoned pit that had like an underground decline, and he drove to the bottom. He stopped, he said, okay, it's your turn, drive up. And that's how I learned how to start and stop in an old Toyota Ute, which is like a little pickup truck in Australia. And I learned how to drive manual on a mining decline. So very effective, but not necessarily,
The
I wouldn't
best
recommend
way.
that as a teaching method, but it did work.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And Sharon, before we wrap up, tell us a little bit about you personally.
I definitely like the outdoors. I've kind of rediscovered it after my field career. There's kind of this joke amongst geologists that when you spend a lot of time in the outdoors and you get paid for it, and doing a lot of
Yeah.
hiking and outdoors work, it's almost like why would you do, not for profit outdoors work, like just camping and hiking. But I've kind of discovered that side of it. I'm an avid hiker and backpacker. I really like that. I've done the West Coast Trail. I've spent a lot of time in Strathcona Park here on Vancouver Island. I think there's a lot of lessons you can learn from backpacking and hiking multi-day trips.
Uh,
If you doubt yourself too much, you're not going to make it. You
uh,
need to be determined. You also don't need to be the fastest or the strongest. You just need to keep putting one foot in front of the other. And
uh,
eventually you'll end up somewhere incredible. And that's really taught me a lot about
uh,
given me a lot of confidence in myself that if I
uh,
just keep going, you're eventually going to get there. It's not a race. And I think my mining markets are a lot like that too, in terms of like just keep putting one foot in front of the other. Some of it is not a sprint. It's a long race and or sorry, a long marathon. And eventually, you'll get to hopefully get to some big wins.
Yes, that's great. That's great. Thank you for sharing. Well, we'll wrap up here, but Sharon, any last thing you want to share with us?
Well, Jeff, we were talking earlier about my role, and right now I'm writing a column. It's called Ground Truth in Paydirt Prospector. But I really see my role kind of evolving. This is very new to the newsletter, and it's new to me as well. So, there's some education, there's some Q&A, and let's see where this goes. If we could maybe do something like answer readers' questions, or if there's topics
Yes.
that people want covered. There's a lot of questions, Jeff, I'm sure you've had over the years, specifically with technical and geological terms.
Yes.
So yeah, watch this space. But I'm very pleased to be part of the team. I think Jeff, I reached out to you and was looking for some collaboration, and I think you guys are really trusted and respected advisors in the industry. So I'm very happy to be working with you.
I didn't pay her to say that either. She said that on her own. So, well, Sharon, we're glad you're with us. It really adds a perspective that I think a lot of newsletters, frankly, don't have. Her Ground Truth column is great. It's fantastic. It's not long. It gets right to the point, and it tells you, it interprets all the geology of what's going on in that particular press release, and it tells you what you need to know as an investor, good or bad. We're not here to cheerlead. We're here. Paydirt Prospector is you perform or you're out. So we're pretty honest in that letter, pretty blunt. So Sharon is helping us with that tremendously. And like she says, maybe her role will grow here. We'll see. Could be exciting. So Sharon, we're glad you're here at the Gold Advisor. Thanks everyone for watching, and check out the Paydirt Prospector where Sharon's column Ground Truth appears. Thanks, Sharon.
Thanks, Jeff.